Let's talk anime. Hello and welcome to Brandon's Discuss Anime, the Reckless Amoeba podcast. I am your host, Brandon Horvath, and with me are my co-hosts, Brandon Falinger.
Brandon Fallinger is not here. I am Friend Dog. Friend Dog is here.
Also, Ryan Stokill is here.
They're trying to eat me. Help me.
Friend Dog. I only eat humans. Exterminate. 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 Friend Dog.
So, I know I added it in a little afterthought to last week's episode, but I found out that, unfortunately, Jim Cummings will not be voicing Don Carnage in the DuckTales episode.
You lied to me!
I know! When I was looking it up 2 weeks ago, just for reference purposes, it didn't say anything else but Jim Cummings. I saw a clip last night, and I'm like, that sounds nothing like the voice. I checked, they updated with whoever the current voice is, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting your name, dude.
This makes me sad. That voice was so amazing. Don Carnage was great. Why would you not bring back Jim Cummings if you could?
Because I'm pretty sure, and I could be getting this wrong again, just by sounding, it sounds like he did Darkwing Duck in the DuckTales episode.
Oh, he was there!
So, other than that, I really have nothing to talk about.
Aside from just rain all day, every day. It's our life right now.
Yep.
Rain is life right now. That's it. There's nothing else. It's miserable. Nobody's allowed to do anything. And it's not even supposed to get better this week. It's supposed to be worse. It's the same shit all over again.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
See, Knoebels was like...
Knoebels and Hershey. They were both, underwater.
Yeah, there's 5 feet of water.
Huh.
They get nuts.
I've been there when my grandparents used to live up in that area, and I just remember they have flood zone levels, in 1975 the water was up here.
Yeah, they have them, posted on trees and the bridges and stuff there.
I wonder if they're going to have a new one.
Oh, I guarantee they did. When I was up there, in, what was it, mid-2000s, I think was the time. And they had, a flood in 2006. They had the signs there, within the next year. They keep track of that shit when it's real bad. But it makes you wonder, right? How much revenue are they losing because they're closing due to the flooding?
Yeah.
And then how much shit do they end up having to replace because of that?
But Knoebels is free, right?
Yeah, except for...
It's free to enter, but you pay for the rides themselves. You buy, a stack of tickets, and depending on what the price is for the ride, you have to pay.
Yeah, now
those
I
tickets.
remember.
But, the point is, how much money are they losing because people aren't able to ride the rides? And how much money are they losing when it comes to, whatever needs to be replaced due to flooding and damages in that way? I'd be curious to know. Especially when they rake in millions within a day, I'd say. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Between the food stands, between, the carnival games and the rides, they're probably making at least a good, $50,000 a day.
Yeah, I'd say around there.
So is that a better business model than having a price to enter and free rides?
I mean, it depends, right? It depends on what those prices end up actually being for people.
Yeah. I don't think it is, because Dorney Park charges $60 or whatever ticket is. I haven't been there in 2 years, so. But everybody has to pay that. So it's not sometimes, you never know. It could be families that go to Knoebels where just the kids go on the rides.
From a consumer standpoint, it's a much better model, but from a business standpoint, not as great. But the thing is, right, you sit down and you think about it, and Dorney Park isn't really owned by a family by a family anymore. Knoebels still is.
Yeah, true.
Really?
So, yes, as far as I'm aware, they're still the owners of that park.
Yeah.
So it might very well be just, personal decisions at that point. Which, that's always nice to see, is shit like that, where a family business is still, working and owning it and doing what they can to make the business work. And even more so when they're not gouging people's wallets out for it. It honestly all comes down because like Orion said, it could very well be that the kids will be the ones riding the rides and the adults are just there to give them a good time. They'll probably grab food themselves, so that's still going to happen.
Like giant, enormous turkey legs. Wait, does Knoebels even have those?
Not as far as I'm aware. Unless they added since I've been there.
Yeah, I haven't been there in, 5 years, probably.
I used to camp up there. Actually, a group of my friends are camping up there right now. And from what I heard last night, one of them got real smashed. Just destroyed by the alcohol.
Was it Karen?
No, it's not Karen. No, it's a couple of other friends I have.
Oh.
They're within the same group, but because they're generally further away from me, out in State College, I don't get to talk with them as much. But no, it was my friend Josh, who is very lightweight when it comes to alcohol. Oh boy. From what I heard, he's destroyed right now. And he's probably got a terrible hangover. What did he have? They usually end up making mixed drinks whenever they go out camping like this or something. Like that or beer, one of the two. Whatever cheap shit they can get their hands on. In this case, I think they're getting vodka mixed with Sprite or something like that. And not even within a shot glass, Josh is just gone. He is that lightweight when it comes to alcohol. It's bad.
Oh.
But he can't help himself. Alright, look. I need to go off on a tangent here, and this is probably going on longer than it should, but... So, there was a point, right, and I was on a Skype call with Josh and the group that was there at the time when this occurred, right? They were playing a game, and I forget what game it was, but they ended up, coming on to the, talking about Woodstock for one reason or another, right? And Josh had no idea what Woodstock was, and he smashed at the time. And he's like, isn't it one of those things, you put your arms, in, and, your head and everything? They're made out of wood and shit. It's no, that's not what we're talking about, Josh. And he sat there for a good 30 minutes, and he decided, at the end of that to just Google it, and he holds up and says, ha, motherfuckers, I got you. Look at this. It's real. Josh, that's not what we're talking about. He literally holds out a wooden stock and said, this is it. You fuckers lied to me. We're talking about the music concerts. Shit like that's just fucking gold with him.
14. That was an interesting story.
Oh, trust me. It's much more hilarious when you're there to see it go down. Because it doesn't end well for Josh, usually. He's doing something stupid more for the most part. Alright. Anybody else got some? I'm still playing Octopath Traveler 2, which is a fucking great game. If you like JRPGs, it's amazing.
I don't have anything.
I know you'll hate this, Brandon, but my local paper gave Teen Titans Go to the Movies 3 stars.
Out of?
4.
Why 4?
I don't know.
The standard's usually 5 or 10.
But the sources they get their thing from always gives it out of 4 stars.
I don't...
So
it doesn't make any goddamn sense to me that it would be 4 stars.
So that movie may be decent.
I refuse to believe that. I think they've just been bribed.
I haven't watched a good DC movie since the third Nolan Batman.
I would have said Wonder Woman was the last good one.
I haven't watched that.
No,
yeah,
no
that's
what,
fine.
what about Batman Ninja?
I haven't watched it, so I can't I can't
That
comment on
doesn't
it.
count.
Oh, like you're not
Also, that's
counting...
animated. That's not live action.
Okay, you're not counting the animated universe.
No.
Okay.
No, because
And-
DC generally does animated very well. The
Yeah,
reason
Batman
Teen
Ninja
Titans
was
is
fucking
one
awesome.
thing is because it's not really DC in control of it in this case.
Although, as I was reading about it, I did find one part humorous. Stan Lee shows up for a cameo in the DC movie.
Which movie?
That Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which I don't intend on seeing.
No, thank you. I don't
watch any
support
DC.
garbage.
Yeah,
And I know it may sound like we're just hating on it, but I mean,
compared
I've
to
tried
the
watching the
original-
show. I gave it a fair chance. I didn't like it.
Yeah, compared to the original, it's not that good.
Well, I mean, clearly, like, I originally went in with that attitude, which maybe that's on, my bad for doing that, but my point would still stand either way. Like, I went in as dry as I could to this without any kind of prerequisites, which very difficult considering how much I like the original Teen Titans.
Yeah.
I still didn't like the show.
I'm not too sure if it's a plus or minus in their box about keeping the same voice actors.
Yes and no. Like, that was one of the things that made me want to watch it again. Like, I'll give it that, is because you have the original voice cast back. But the content's still garbage, even if the voice actors do a good job. Like, it's no the show that shall not be named. And you know what I'm talking about, Brandon.
Yes.
Voldemort?
It's not that awful, but it's not much better. It's still the same kind of, like, throw eggs at a wall comedy and see what sticks. And while they're getting maybe a 25%, said other show got like a 2 that stuck.
Well, and one thing that I find neat about that collection of characters, just like Mark Hamill is now like the voice of the Joker, and everybody seems to either have Mark Hamill as an animated Joker or make it sound pretty much like him.
Yeah.
And I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but Carrie Payton, voice of Cyborg, is now Cyborg in a lot of things. I think even in Injustice.
Did not know that. What was I gonna look for? Oh, right. Anthony Ngruber. Right, so I'm looking at the Telltale Batman, because I remember when I watched that, the Joker in that game is pretty damn good. And he doesn't do the same kind of performance that Mark Hamill does. This Joker's a much more nervous one, is probably the best way to put it. When he laughs, it's not straight up, I'm an insane clown. It's this nervous laughter that he's got to him.
Oh, interesting.
That, and the fact that they twist around the story for this one, they twist it so that Harley's already the villain, and she's the one that's corrupting the Joker and turning him into, the villain. Which is a really interesting, way of putting it. And the even better part, because it's a video game and you're playing Batman / Bruce Wayne, you can also tweak him as well, so that he ends up becoming a vigilante in the end, or if you don't tweak him enough, he becomes the villain.
Do you want to go on to the main course of the episode?
I mean, sure.
That may have been slightly spoiled by Orion and my mutual friend last night, but
Oh, great.
but Orion wasn't paying full attention, so
I didn't even know what the hell you guys were talking about.
yes, so that was good.
Want to go ahead and just spill the beans on what exactly happened there?
He was just like, hey, did you finish said anime when Orion was right by us? And I'm like, no, don't stop. He doesn't know what we're watching. And
Shut up. Don't say it.
And Josh is like, wait, he doesn't know what you're watching? And I explained the concept of drop the title to Orion, and mutual friend Josh says, oh, that's hilarious. So, Orion,
Yes.
Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, subtitle, Phantom Blood.
Well, I kind of didn't know this one because he told me to watch it a while ago.
Oh, did he?
So,
Yeah.
what do you remember him telling you, and small note, you might be confusing it with another story arc, since there are multiple story arcs in here. I believe they are...
4 currently, and the 5th one is in the works.
And there are 8 in manga format.
Yes.
Trying to think of a kid, and then some weird shit happens.
I mean, this isn't Bobby's world.
Jojo is the kid, I guess. And then, I don't know, some like wild shit happens. He starts killing people. Weird shit happens. That's all I know. I didn't watch it, but...
I mean, yeah, shit happens. Just like in everything. Shit happens.
Yeah, but weird shit.
Bizarre shit, one might say.
Bizarre,
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, you're not quite wrong that bizarre shit happens.
Other than that, I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Where Dragon Ball Z is divided into sagas, JoJo's tends to be, like, divided into parts.
Okay.
Where with each and every other part, we start following a different member of the family.
All of which have the nickname JoJo.
Due to the way their names end up coming out, like, there's a Joe in their first name, and their last name has a Joe in it. Therefore, they get the name JoJo.
Except for one of them that could alternatively be read as Joe.
The American hero.
Oh, Christ.
And for once, our story does not take place in Japan. It takes place in England in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Where you must be a gentleman. Let me also put this out, alright? Araki, the creator of this series, tends to like putting in the names of bands he loves into the series.
I was going to bring that up a little bit later.
I mean, you can bring it up again later.
Yeah, he kind of has a Toriyama obsession with naming things.
Less puns, more literal, like, bands and, like, singers.
Of actual bands?
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
And when we get into where they're more different type of powers than...
What we'll see in this one.
Like, the music references just take a nosedive into... I'm naming everything after music.
I mean, there is a character in, like, part 4 that literally goes by the name of Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I believe in Arc 3, there's a character named Kenny G, and his power is named tenor sax.
Oh my god.
It's so good, though. It's so good. Like...
That's awesome.
There's a character in this part that's literally called Ton Petty.
And the main sidekick in here is Robert E.O. Speedwagon.
I love it. I still say he's my favorite character out of this entire series. Yeah. Or not series, this part. I love Robert Speedwagon. He's so great. I know this is a little bit, this isn't even a spoiler because Orion wouldn't have any idea, but he saved the hat, man. The best part of that outfit.
For part 2?
No, in part 1.
Oh,
he saved the hat.
Now I know what you're talking about.
The best hat. I want that hat. It's the best top hat I've ever seen. Come on, man. Oh, God.
So, our story begins in 1880 with Dario Brando stealing from the supposed dead body of George Joestar. Except we find out George is actually incapacitated and thinks Dario is saving his life.
Yep.
When in fact, Dario is just a thief.
He's just a grave robber.
So, in the end, they kind of have a friendship. So, 8 years later, as Dario is dying, he sends his son, Dio.
Sorry. I'm just thinking of the meme that this anime creates.
Is it the porn meme?
No.
Okay.
That's all over part 3.
Oh, okay. We'll dive into the porn meme as part 3 comes about.
Once we get there.
So he sends his son Dio to the Joestar mansion in hopes of Dio will steal the fortune and bring glory to the Brando name?
I'm not 100% sure what Dario's motivations were in sending his son when he himself was literally on his deathbed. Like, maybe he does in some sick way have some, like, love for his son to want him to be better off, but it's kinda hard to say considering the way he treats Dio the entire time.
And because of that, Dio is
A rainbow
kind of
in
an
the dark.
asshole.
Well, that, and, like, because of the way his father acts, Dio's mother ended up... I think it's implied that she committed suicide because she couldn't deal with him anymore.
Dang.
Like, there are dark points in this series, by the way. Like, this is a series that was originally penned in the 80s.
Okay.
So, like, there's a lot of 80s stuff in this.
And I believe, except for parts 1 and 2, everything is written in the future from when the manga was penned.
It might be. I don't know. I'd have to look at dates.
You want to talk about the creepy mask?
The stone mask,
Yes, the stone mask.
which just for your sake, Brandon, I'm gonna go ahead and just tell you right now that, the origins of that mask end up coming to light in part 2.
I kind of got that feeling.
Yeah.
Since parts 1 and 2 are the same season of the anime, with
Yes.
a big drop at the end of episode 9, this is the start of another bizarre journey or adventure. And then it just says to be continued, Roundabout starts playing, which is a meme in itself.
That's another meme, yeah.
The to be continued meme, Ryan.
Okay.
That came from this.
Yeah, no, the meme I was thinking of, right, is the one where it's like, you thought it was blank, but it was really me, Dio! Like, they have memed that to shit. Like, there's another anime called Chunibyo, right? Where one character has, like, an eye patch on, and she has, like, the stupid power of, like, I'm going to release, like, the inner demon's eye. And you just see, like, a picture of her with the eye patch off, and Dio's face is just in her eye, and it's like, you thought she was going to release the inner eye, but it was really me, Dio! I'm like, oh my god, jeez, I love it. I love it. It's the best meme. Just 'cause you can just put it anywhere, and it works.
So there are vampires in the story.
Really?
Well, I mean, actually, let's go into, like, just how twisted Dio is first. Like, before we get to the vampires.
Okay, because Dio is a complete asshole.
I mean, he's not just an asshole, like, it's literally, he's psychotic. Like, his entire plan is to steal the Joestar's fortune, because the Joestars are rich, and his plan is to literally, like, I'm going to become this man's son through his connection to, through George's connection to his father, and I'm going to go ahead and make his blood son, Jonathan, literally insane, so that he's incapable of having the fortune given to him.
Oh, shit.
Like, to the point where he starts twisting things around and he first meets Jonathan, and Jonathan's dog comes over to, like, say hi to him, and he just knees the thing in the face.
Oh, I'm sorry. That dog scared me.
He was going to attack me.
So I defended myself. I'm sorry. Don't you bring the dog around me again.
Yeah, as soon as they're alone, he literally starts telling Jonathan, like, I hate fucking mongrels. I hate you. Don't let that thing anywhere fucking near me. And nobody notices this shit because it's set off to the side when Jonathan, like, when all the servants and George Joestar just, like, started walking away. There's even a point where he starts spreading rumors about Jonathan to the point where it's like, Jonathan's a snitch. Nobody wants to be friends with him because he's a snitch. And this is when they're like 12 years old, by the way.
Okay.
Even though they look like 14 to 15 years old.
He steals Jonathan's girlfriend's first kiss.
Yeah. Like, he's been spying on them, and it's like, oh, Jojo's been way too happy lately. You must be the reason. And he, like, steals the kiss from her, and she then starts, like, rubbing mud and, like, sucking water from a puddle to, like, try to get rid of the, like, disgust. That, yes. Like, that and the disgust of it. In which point he ends up backhanding her and being like, you're doing that just to insult me now.
How dare you wipe off my kiss?
There's that. There's the point. Here's one other thing I will point out too, that they didn't show, which I find kind of surprising. Cause I've also read the manga all the way up until part 6, which I had trouble finding. There's a point in this that they don't show for one reason or another, and maybe it's because of Japanese television laws, I'm not too sure. But considering all the other shit they show, I'm kind of surprised it wasn't in there. So, before we get another jump cut to like 7 years later, so when Jonathan and Dio are 19 at that point, we get a point where like Jonathan's dog is missing,
Mm-hmm.
and what we end up finding out is that I think what Dio did was like somehow knock the dog out and throw it into the incinerator. And this is what happens, right? What actually ended up happening is because during a fight with Jonathan bested him. And Dio was going to shank him with like a pocket knife he had until George Joestar came out and saw them fighting. So instead, he ends up knocking out the dog, throwing it into the incinerator, and during the anime what we see is like the groundskeeper who had like turned it on realizing something's in there, and then we cut right away to like Jonathan standing over the dog's grave and his father telling him he was too mangled and it wasn't a pretty sight, so we decided to bury him right away. We didn't want you to see, your dog that way.
So
in the anime, we get a shot of the flaming dog jumping out. Or, sorry, not in the anime. In the manga, we get the flaming dog jumping out of the incinerator.
Jesus.
Ooh.
Does it die?
Yes.
Yeah.
It still dies. Like, it's so on fire, like, any fur or skin it had is gone.
Oh, jeez.
But there's shit later on in this anime that, like, it could technically be considered just as dark. Like, there is a point where a guy gets his head scalped from the jaw up, and it just plops down on a carpet.
Well, is it like, so the anime is pretty brutal?
It can be. There are points. It's not anywhere near as brutal as it could be, but there are brutal points. When there's combat and shit, it gets brutal.
And when there's comedy, it gets kind of bizarre.
I mean, that's the title of the show.
So, the whole show, like, follows the kid Joe?
The whole part for this one follows, Jonathan Joestar.
Okay.
Later parts follow his descendants.
Oh, okay.
So, Jojo was to be an archaeologist, and he's researching this stone mask.
Well, here's one thing that we noticed, right? Because we're leaving out a little bit here. During the fight between Jonathan and Dio, when they're 12, before we get to the time skip, there's a point where, like, one of them starts bleeding at one point. I think it was Dio. I just forget, like, what caused it. But that blood splatters across a stone mask that George had in his possession, all the way from the very first episode. And said stone mask flies off the wall because it sprouts spikes out of, like, the flat end of it. Like, not the inside of the mask, but that flat end before you get around to the outside of the mask. So those spikes, like, Jonathan saw that and thought, what the heck's that? And that ended up sparking him onto, like, an archaeological venture, trying to figure out what the secret of it was. But, we get this time skip of 7 years later, and all of a sudden he and Dio are friends.
Gotcha.
Even though Jonathan still has, like, suspicions about Dio. Like, he still doesn't trust him, even though, like, in front of everyone else, they're good buddies.
Yeah.
Like, there's a point, like, where they're playing a rugby game, and they win, and it's like, Dio, like he's being interviewed. Dio, tell us about your friendship with Jonathan. And it's like, you cut to like Dio's inner monologue and he's just like, friendship, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm only using this fool.
Oh, we've been friends since childhood. Even though I hate him. Oh, come here, Jojo buddy.
Now that I'm of age, I can finally take that portion officially, and I have no more need for Jonathan or his father. Like, just the purest of evil.
Dio sends Jojo to... No, they find out his father is sick. George is sick. So, Jojo says, like, hey, I'm going to find out. Was that when he finds out that Dio may be poisoning him? Yeah, I think so.
Yes, I think that's about right.
So
it's because he's looking for something on the shelves, and he knocks down a box that must have been Dio's, and he finds the letter that was that he came with to present to George Joestar from his father Dario. And he finds out that like the same sickness that Dio's father had, like the same symptoms, are happening to his dad. So George has the same symptoms that Dario did. And he then finds out, like, as he's running out to confront Dio about this, Dio's carrying up the medication for George. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm putting two and two together here. You're poisoning him, aren't you? And I love the point, right, where Jonathan basically says, look, Dio, all right, swear to me, like, on your father's honor, as a gentleman, that the medication that you're giving father has been prescribed or is not poison, something like that. And like Dio loses it because it's like that fucker never had any honor.
So Jojo goes to like some shady part of London.
Well, that's the thing too. Like Jonathan has no evidence of this. This is all speculation on his part too. So he goes to this shady part of London to try and figure out where the poison comes from. And while Dio's technically under house arrest.
And he gets beat up by 3 street thugs hired by Dio. One of which
Were they hired?
I'm pretty sure
I don't think they were. I think they were just regular thugs that saw a rich guy and said, hey, we're gonna take his money. I don't think Dio had any, like, connection to them.
I'm not 100% sure, but one of which is Robert E.O. Speedwagon, one of the best characters in the series.
And he is a dapper motherfucker.
Yes. Hey,
for like a street thug.
You didn't kill me when you had the opportunity. Back off, everybody. This guy is my friend now.
Well, I mean, like, it's the fact that literally Jonathan goes, look, I'm here to help my family, and I realized that you all have family. So I didn't want to cause any of them distress because of this. And that's what I think really triggered Speedwagon into liking him. Because it's not the consideration for his own life, it's the consideration for somebody else's family.
Eventually, Dio finds out the stone mask, when placed on somebody's face and activated by blood, can turn people into vampires.
Well, I mean, he got his collarbone shattered, too. His original plan, because he knew that the mask shot out spikes, was to shove it on Jojo and kill him with it. And then when he decides to test it out on some schmuck that decided to get in his way, because he's out drinking at this point because his plan to poison George failed, and he ends up like bringing the mask and then testing it on like some random person that tries to like attack him in the street, and the mask ends up turning the dude into a vampire.
That is kind of different since they suck blood through their fingers.
Well, I mean, it depends on which one you're talking about. There's a point later when it's literally through the hair.
Oh, yes. Hair vampire guy.
They're playing with the whole idea of vampires, but it's not in a way that's obnoxious, I'll say. They're tweaking it, right? And I've heard, like, the whole idea of turning someone into a vampire is when you, like, transfuse your blood with the vampire's blood. And that's how it usually happens, not when you're bitten. So I feel like that's what's going on here more than anything else. So, like the vampire is trading its essence for the blood, and that essence then corrupts the person and turns them into a vampire. At least that's the case in this series, it seems.
So Dio has the idea, if I want to be Jojo, I need to become a vampire.
The fuck?
So he uses the mask on himself with the blood of Jojo's father.
You're also, like, skipping some things here, though. Like, that wasn't his initial plan. He still planned to, like, I think get Jojo with it. It wasn't until when he came back to the mansion with literally cops and shit there that were ready to arrest him with guns pointed at him that he's like, well, I got no other choice. I'm going to abandon my humanity.
And this still is taking place in
1888.
Yep.
Okay. So they have those weird constable hats and
Yep.
mustaches.
Yep. But yeah, he ends up just throwing away his humanity. In the meantime, you know, as he puts on the mask and gets stabbed by all the spikes from it,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, according to, I think Jonathan says it, where it's like, it unlocks the potential within the human brain. Or at least that's what he thinks until he realizes that no, it literally turned Dio into a fucking vampire. And Dio then goes on to, like, kill everybody. Where we get the said head scooping I mentioned earlier. All the constables are dead, the mansion's now on fire, Speedwagon's injured, Dio's a fucking vampire looking for blood. Like death, essentially, at that point.
And
like,
doesn't at one point Jack the Ripper attack Dio and Dio says, I could use you?
well, that's later.
I
Like,
thought
that's
it was like the
after-
next episode.
Yeah, that's after the fact that he loses to Jonathan by being impaled on the Joestar family, like, statue while the house is burning down around him.
The fuck?
Well, the idea was like, well, shit, he's regenerating because he took a whole bunch of bullet holes and they saw that it was healing. Jonathan goes, well, the only way to deal with him then is to, like, burn or hurt him faster than he can regenerate. So he lights the mansion on fire and hopes that the burning flames can, you know,
Like kill
burn
it,
him
fuck it?
faster. Yeah, cook him faster than he can regenerate from it.
Okay. Damn.
And in order to keep Dio from, like, escaping the fire, he ends up, like, getting him to the roof, dropping him through the entirety of the building until he lands on the statue and is impaled there and not able to, like, get off.
Yeah.
And as it's burning, everyone thinks he's dead.
But he's not.
No.
And he escapes.
No, he doesn't escape. Somebody
Uh.
ends up finding him. Actually, the Chinese guy that sold him the poison to kill George is the one that finds him. He then turns him into a vampire zombie, by the way, in order to control him.
Oh, shit.
Well, you're my servant now. And yes, he then finds Jack the Ripper and says, I'm gathering evil people. You seem like you'll fit.
And can we talk about Jojo's master? William Antonio Zeppelini. Or Led Zeppelin.
I was gonna say, he's literally just Led Zeppelin.
Fuck.
Will A. Zeppeli. Like, I love it. It's so dumb and I love it.
And this guy is like so silly. The fact that he's like, I'm going to teach you how to use Harmon. And
Haman.
Harmon?
There's no R. It's
Okay.
Hamon. Haman.
Okay, I must have mistyped then. He goes to smash a frog, punches the frog, the energy from the Harmon goes through the frog and obliterates the rock the frog is standing on, and the frog just hops away casually.
That's fine. That was a nice back massage you gave me. Thank you. I mean, like, that's the thing, too. Like, as this goes on, Haman seems to just be like, your get out of jail free card, because it gets, like, crazy different techniques that don't really make sense. It's there to fix the situation he's in. Also, let's point out that Will A. Zeppeli is in, like, a purple and silver suit with an amazing top hat.
Yes.
I love that hat so much. It's such a great hat.
Good hat.
It's a great hat. I'd wear it every day. But yeah, Zeppeli goes on to train Jojo in the way of Haman. Like, after the incident with Dio, he had a shattered, what was it, his left or right arm, one of the two. was shattered, like to the point of the bones are not going to come back, and he had to use a cane to walk from the injuries. Zeppeli just comes in, hits him in the gut, invigorates him with like the Haman ability, and now he's suddenly healed.
My arm's fixed now.
Like, don't worry, the pain will pass quickly. But, pretty sure you can move that arm now.
And then he tries to do the same to Speedwagon. Doesn't really work.
I don't think he even tries to do the same to Speedwagon. I don't think he believed Speedwagon could do it. Because he said his finger slipped.
Oh, okay.
Like, and later we get the point where he says to Speedwagon, oh, I thought you'd be like the one to kind of run away from this stuff, but you seem to stick around. Good on you. So I don't, maybe he could have unlocked it for Speedwagon, but he never did because he didn't think Speedwagon, was someone that'd be willing to work out, help with this stuff.
Okay.
He thought he'd just be a coward and run.
So, there's a few scenes of Jojo attacking zombies with his Haman abilities, showing what Haman is good for, attacking people through walls.
Well, let me go ahead and point this out too, because I think we're missing a little bit here, right? Where the technique he uses is Haman, right? But it's also got the nickname of the Ripple, which it gets its name because from what Zeppeli tells us, there's a kind of Haman for those that have the vampire abilities, but it's one that's of death. Whereas Haman that's used by humans and, to that extent him, ends up being that of the sun. So the point is the sun kills, vampires, which, in this series, we kind of glossed over that. But yes, the sun works on them the same way it does normally. They turn to dust and ash when they get hit by the sun.
Oh, okay.
So the idea being that we need to use this power that emulates the sun in order to defeat these zombies. Also, the reason Zeppeli ends up showing up is because he has a history with the stone mask that changed Dio. And he wants it destroyed, since his family was the one that discovered it while on an archaeological expedition. His father put on the mask, turned into a zombie vampire, and started slaughtering everyone on the ship that was ready to come back to London. Or England, whichever place it would have been in.
London is in England.
Well, I mean, my point is London isn't a port town.
Oh, okay, good point.
But yeah, he ends up coming back to deal with the mask because he was the only survivor, and the ship with the mask on it sailed away while he was out in the ocean, only to be discovered later. So his whole connection is that he wants the mask destroyed so this evil doesn't start up again.
And I know I may be jumping ahead half an episode, but when Jojo's in the graveyard that he was led into, I just love his little interaction between him and Dio. Dio, how many people did you murder? I don't know, Jojo. How many loaves of bread did you eat in your lifetime?
It was slices of bread, actually, so that makes it all the worse.
Well, I listened to the dub, and it was loaves of bread.
Oh, they changed it for some stupid reason then. But yeah, I had the subs, and it was translated as slices of bread.
Which makes it even more ridiculous.
Oh yeah, no, he's slaughtering countless people.
Wait, what was that line from the half-decent live-action Street Fighter movie from, the early 90s? It's oh, you may have been mad that I murdered your family, but for me, it was Tuesday.
It was just a Tuesday.
Just another Tuesday.
But yeah, Dio just does not give a shit. He has nothing left as far as humanity goes. He threw that all away.
And he kind of has the power to freeze people.
He's less freezing. He's more, what is it? He's evaporating the mist around the person and then freezing that condensation on them. The sweat that your body produces, he's turning that to a gas and then flash freezing it over the body.
And since Haman is kind of, sort of heat-based, he can't really use the Haman abilities on frozen limbs.
Yeah, it's that, and it's the fact that if your chest is frozen, it's working through the blood. That's the biggest part. And because he's freezing, everything around the limb, it's getting to the point that it's so cold that the blood itself is freezing.
Mm.
If your blood's not flowing, the ripple can't go through that limb.
Okay. The ripple.
Hamon, the ripple.
Hamon.
So then Jojo fights a few more people with different Haman abilities, all of which are named after colors, it seems like.
Yes. In this case, colors seem to be like the main driving nomenclature for these techniques.
If he's underwater, he uses like aqua, and if he's touching his sword, it's silver.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't there one? I forget what the reason was. He was using one called Scarlet. It was while he was fighting the hair dude. Oh yeah, it was. That's what it was. It was fire. I think he lit his hand on fire with a torch or something at that point.
No, I think you're thinking about his final fight with Dio.
That might be the one. Either way, continue.
I don't want to jump too far ahead, so I'm going to let you say anything you want about the two fights.
Oh, about the two knights?
Yes.
Well, let's first put it this way. Dio has escaped to a place called Wind Knight's Gap, I think? I forget what it was. Wind Knight something. But it's an area that was a training ground for medieval knights at the time that holds like a population of just under 500. And that's where they end up running into Dio and fighting him. So what they end up doing is that they start fighting with these two knights from back in like the day when Mary Antoinette was alive and Elizabeth I were warring over the throne of England. Dio has apparently resurrected them as zombies in order to fight Jonathan and to add them because they were betrayed before they died. They were told, hey, we have Mary, but we'll free her, Mary Antoinette, or not Antoinette, Mary Queen of Scots, I think it was. We'll free her if you give up your lives because they were so good at what they were doing, fighting back to try and free her and slaughtering armies and shit that, like, look, we'll make you a deal. You give yourselves in, we'll let her go, it'll be fine. And as they're setting their heads down to be, like, lopped off, the executioner just says to them, hey, your precious Mary, she's over there, and you just get a cut to, like, her severed head. Took care of her this morning. So yeah, they were betrayed. They're pissed off, and as such, they were perfect additions to Dio's army. Now, the one knight, Bluford, basically gives Jonathan his sword at the end. Because as the Hammon is rippling through him, it's both giving him back his humanity, because it's tearing away, like, the zombiehood and, shit that Dio had given to him, the vampire essence. So rather than being, like, rage-filled and evil, he's getting his knightly pride back and, like, his feeling of being alive. So he grants Jonathan his sword for doing that for him. And then we have Tarkus.
Who's Mr. Hair Demon.
Mr. Hairdo is Bluford.
Oh.
Tarkus is giant.
Oh, yes!
Tarkus is literally, like, twice as tall as them and, like, 4 times as massive.
He could be considered a Varl, but that's a different story.
I mean, he's bigger than that, but yeah.
Okay. He would be the Varl's Varl.
Yeah, they eventually end up, like, getting into an area where Jonathan gets a collar put around his neck with a chain that runs up into the ceiling, goes across the room, comes down, and attaches to another collar that's around Tarkus. Meanwhile, Zeppeli, Speedwagon, and the little kid they picked up, Paco, are, like, locked out of said room.
And the only way to escape said room, according to the guy, is to kill your opponent.
Yeah, because the key is underneath, is inside the collar that's around your neck, right? So the key that the collar around Jonathan has the key to Tarkus's collar, and then vice versa for Tarkus. And because Tarkus is massive, he's just like completely destroying Jonathan the whole time. It's like, I'm just gonna pull this chain and slam you up against the top of like the ceiling of this room. Like, it gets brutal to the point where like he breaks Jonathan's neck.
But Jonathan is still alive.
Well, I mean, you can live with a broken neck. You're just a paraplegic now. The body's useless now, other than just like basic functions.
But thanks to Hammond, Jonathan can still move.
Well, here's the thing. Paco ends up crawling through like some of those arrow slits that are, you know, installed to like shoot people through, but make it hard for them to shoot back through. He crawls through one of those, gets in the room. Tarkus like belts him in the stomach because he doesn't want interruptions for this fight. Paco barely gets over to like the lever on the inside that opens the door for Zeppeli and Speedwagon to get in. And then Zeppeli ends up trying to help Jojo, only to then get wrapped up in the chain and then split in half. One of his arms is cut off, and his his body from like the stomach down is cut off. He's dead at that point, or at least may as well be. But before like he fully passes away, he gives Jojo all of the Hammond that he has left within him, like his entirety of his life force, which heals his broken neck, makes it way stronger than Tarkus, and leaves Zeppeli looking like an old man. Or at least, you know, whatever's left of his body at that point. Also, we find out that Zeppeli's master was named Ton Petty. Some Indian master in, like, a Shaolin temple out in India is named Ton Petty. I love it.
And, like, that's his last name, Ton Petty.
Master Ton
really?
Petty.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it.
Oh my god.
So then they go to the church after meeting up with Ton Petty and some of his other disciples for the final fight against Dio.
Mm-hmm. Zeppeli had sent them a letter inviting them to come and help deal with the situation. Unfortunately, you know, he died just before that, you know, meeting up with them. Also, you know, obviously Jonathan beat Tarkus. That's not even a question at this point.
But the final fight between Dio and Jonathan is brutal.
Well, let's not forget the fact that for whatever reason, Dio has like little puppies with human heads on them.
Oh yes, that's disturbing.
Yeah, I don't know why it's there. Like, it's just a thing that he has. And like the dog human thing can talk. And it says something Dio doesn't like, so he just crushes it underfoot.
Dio is violent,
You'd think.
to say the least.
Like, the fact that he's a vampire now means he wants to take over the world. So, with his evil army of vampires. Also, he's abducted Paco's sister, who seems to be one of the only humans left. So, yeah, there's that. Let's also not forget the fact, like, he offers to turn Paco's sister into a vampire like him and to be young and beautiful forever. She slaps him in the face and he goes, "Oh, I'm ashamed. It's such a shame. Well, I guess if you don't like my affections, I'll leave this guy for you." And it's a guy with, like, this massive guy with a bag on his head, and he goes to, like, tear her clothing off. I'm like, oh, it's going there.
And this said guy has, like, snakes for a head.
Well, they're laced throughout his skull. They're not, like, just his head.
Oh yes.
And they're all, like, viciously poisonous.
And Jojo gets bitten by a snake, but he manages to squeeze out the poison.
Yeah, he uses Hobbit and just ejects the poison back out of the opening. Because that's how you do that.
So during the final fight, Dio keeps freezing Jojo. And then, to counteract that, probably what you were thinking of, Brandon, Jojo sets his hand on fire, which somehow works faster than Dio can freeze him?
Something like that, I guess. Like, he can't freeze something that's on fire. Like, if something's on fire, he doesn't have, like, it's being heated more than he can freeze it.
Oh, and Dio did kind of pull a Deadpool, because Jojo slices off his arm, slices his face in half, but not off, so his face is there with a big gash through it, his arm's off. Dio sends, like, tentacle veins, or something like that, to his chopped off arm, draws the arm back to him, and slides his face back into place.
Well, while his face is separated too, right, before it's perfectly back together, his voice is coming in stereo, like it's getting echoed. Like, I thought that was a great addition. Like, with the voice being echoed like that was great. This is coming out of both mouths.
And then Jojo splits Dio with a Haman-imbued sword into many, many, many pieces. And Dio's head falls off the church they're at?
No. What ends up happening, I believe, is that the Haman is, it hits Dio, and what ends up happening is that it's, spreading throughout Dio's body. And Dio ends up deciding, no, I need to cut off my own head before the Haman reaches my brain.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was more disintegrating than being chopped into bits.
Yeah, he was slowly being disintegrated by the Haman. And in order to, keep his brain from being disintegrated, he has to cut off his own head.
The fuck?
Well, it's spreading like a poison, basically, right?
Okay.
Because I think it catches him in the arm, and it's, spreading upward from there. And if his brain survives, he won't die.
Or, in this case, his head.
Well, I mean, even if he cut off from the jaw down, he'd probably still live.
Fucking tumors in their head.
Which we find out in the next episode that Dio did actually survive, and
we had our Chinese man come in and save him again.
And now he is a character on Futurama.
Yeah, he's a jarhead. He's just in a jar. Well, I mean, Jonathan ends up going back. They destroy the mask. Jonathan goes back, meets up with his girlfriend from the beginning of the series, who he met up with after his first fight with Dio. She ended up being the one nursing him back to health in the hospital. And then he left without telling her to deal with Dio the second time, so she has no idea that Dio A is alive and B is a fucking monster. A literal monster, not just, the figurative monster.
Oh, she finds that out.
Oh yeah, by the end, this last episode she does, definitely. But until then, she had no idea. She was completely in the dark.
And in the end, everybody dies.
Yeah, they're going out on their honeymoon. They got married once Jonathan came back from that second venture against Dio. They're going on their honeymoon after being married and leaving on a giant steam-powered ship for America.
And Dio, Jarhead Dio, says, hey Jojo, I'm just a head now, but I need a body.
I respect you though, and for that, I'll make sure you die painlessly. So yeah, let us be united forever, Jojo. The one person that I respect. I'll be taking your body. You'll be mine forever. Oh yeah, also we forgot to mention that Dio apparently has death I-beams now.
Somehow?
That just randomly happened as he was falling off the castle after that second fight. He just has I-beams now, which he'd never used before.
So Jojo knocks old Chinese man into the gear system.
He doesn't have Haman too, because Dio uses I-beams to sever his windpipe. He can barely talk, and he can't do his breathing to do the Haman anymore.
But he still kind of has strength.
He has strength, but that only lasts as long as he's not suffocating.
So old Chinese man is in the gears of the ship, and Jojo says, "Escape. The ship is going to blow up."
Yeah, to his wife, who's cradling him.
So she basically is the only person left to tell the story or the adventure of Jojo.
Yeah, she escapes with somebody else's child. There was a woman who ended up being attacked by the vampire thralls that Dio had created on the ship, out of all the passengers. The woman ends up falling through the floor and landing not far from Irina, his wife. And Jojo tells her to take the child and run. Which, eventually she does after saying but I want to stay here and die in your arms and die with you. It's no, you need to live. Go. Stop being stupid. Go.
So she escapes in Dio's coffin, which supposedly can withstand several tons of dynamite.
Yeah. Like he's like, I had this set up just in case something stupid like this happened. So even if this cheap tanker explodes, the best part is Jonathan dies cradling Dio's head in his arms.
With Dio complaining about it.
Like, no, he's dead already.
Jojo, let me go! Oh, he's dead.
You could live forever with Irina. Come on, please. Don't you want that? Oh, he's already. Oh, damn. Well, now what?
Whoa! And that basically ends Arc 1 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
It's that to get way more bizarre in Part 2.
Yes. Hopefully we can find some way to condense it because this episode ran a bit long.
I mean, we kind of just overviewed the entirety of the series, or the entirety of the part.
Yeah.
So we will have to condense it, because this is probably this is the shortest out of the 4 that are out right now.
Mm-hmm. I think Arc 2 has, like,
16 or 17.
Yeah, and then Arc 3 has 48.
Yeah, because that's straight up 2 seasons in and of itself.
Arc 4 has, like, 39?
Yeah, it's another 2-season one.
Yeah, episodes.
Jeez. That's a lot of episodes for a season.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, the most interesting part about this is that the minute Araki gets tired of something, he can just change it by jumping to the next member of the family. Like, I'm tired of doing this. Who else do I have to work with?
And the thing is, since the world kind of got rebooted in Part 7...
Yeah, because he got tired of continuity, I guess.
So now they're in kind of a Mad Max world, from what I understand?
I know episode 7, or part 7, is set up in, like... It's not a Mad Max world. I don't know what part 8 is about, because I've never gotten the chance to, like, really look at it. But I know part 7 is set up in, like, Western America.
Okay.
And it's set up as a giant, like, horse race across the country.
Mm-hmm. Oh!
It's called Steel Ball Run.
Yes.
But yeah, that's, I know that's where that one's set. I don't know about part 8. I know part 8 is called Jojolian. I don't know what that means. Like, I'm assuming it's a place.
And that's the part that's still going on.
Yep, that's the current one.
Okay. So, Ryan, now that you've heard more about JoJo, would you like to get into it?
Keep in mind that this one's only like, the 25-ish minutes, for this part anyway. 9 episodes at 25-ish minutes.
That was 9 episodes you guys just explained?
Yes.
We really explained them. We didn't condense anything.
That's the thing, right? Like, the way the show's set up, like, there's a decent amount of explanation that needs to go into, like, why things are happening.
And I kind of...
I'll also point out that, like, aside from part 2, most of the other ones, you don't really need, any real backstory behind it. Like, you can jump into any other part without an issue. And
I kind of wanted to keep our normal pace to prevent this episode from going long, but I guess...
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I guess future episodes, when we explain 48 episodes, we'll have to condense.
Yeah.
Or else
we'll hit the highlights of that and just leave out, the details.
Yeah.
If we, whatever details aren't absolutely mandatory to know.
But, to answer your question, sounds like something, I'll check out. I still have a huge list of all the ones I still haven't checked out. Let me add one more thing in here. How did you feel about the opening, Brandon?
I enjoyed the opening.
The only thing, and this is because I knew what was coming, that disappointed me with it. Like, I like the style of it. I really think it's good. I think it's just disappointing that they're using scenes straight out of the show, or out of the part, rather than doing some original work, because it kind of spoils things.
Yeah.
Like the point where Dio literally just, like, shoves his feet into walls and just walks up the wall like it's normal. Like it's a flat surface.
And I just like the fact that they added, like, onomatopoeia sound effects as if it was a comic book or manga we were reading.
I mean, when the opening comes in, the best part of it is just the fact, like, you get like the page turn of the manga and different scenes from different parts with it moving.
Yeah.
Like, it looks great. And honestly, I would have loved it if they just would have done stuff like that. Like, just make a manga panel look like it's moving.
So, a little bit more episode discussion heavy than usual, but next week we will be talking about demons and girls with glasses.
And blood. Lots of blood.
Lots of blood. How disgusting.
I mean, we just got off of a vampire series. I don't know how much more blood we can get here.
That last, how disgusting, that may not be relating to a catchphrase. I may be mixing things up here.
Catchphrase.
It's my catchphrase. It's
You-
called catchphrase.
You don't understand.
I understand everything. I am zen with the world.
You are also friend dog.
I am also friend dog. I have seen Euphoria. That's a 4. Clearly I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. I just rolled a 19. Time to wrap things up. Later, everybody.
See ya.
I am friend dog.